If you've ever worked on a newspaper or even just seen one of those old movies where everyone wore fedoras, you know that this is the most exciting part of it. The press run, the smell of ink, of newsprint, and indifferent prose. This is a romantic moment for newspaper men and women. The clatter of the press, the magic of words appearing on paper, and the realization that much of what's being printed has probably already been seen on last night's news. But even the digitally challenged world of publishing is starting a whole new life on the internet.
In a network of computers, it's not the MIPS and chips and whatnot that's most important. It's what goes on between the people using them that makes them really powerful. A reminder from Sun Microsystems, proud to support this PBS program.
I'm Scott Simon. There aren't many better ways of going broke than by publishing a magazine. The cost of paper and of postage. Now a whole new breed of publication has entered this fray. E-zines, they're called. The E is for electronic. They're not delivered to your home, but they are available there on the internet. Publishers are launching magazines into cyberspace, hoping to find a whole new life on the internet. It's one of those great American dreams. 3 young people with an idea for a new type of magazine who give up their day jobs and go knocking on the doors of the big publishing houses. All they want is a chance to explain their idea. And what do you know? All those nice big-time New York publishers just open up those big heavy doors and let them walk right in to make their pitch.
We realized that a lot of people were inviting us in to pick our brains. We realized that after about meeting number 12, that we could open just about any door in the city. I mean, name a publishing company, name a name in publishing, and we could get in with a cold call and a letter. But then we realized that they were really just kind of hearing what we had to say because it was all new. And then that's when we thought, maybe we should be taking it to other, other venues outside of publishing.
What Carrie Earle and her 2 partners wanted to create was the hippest, smartest, up-to-the-minutest electronic magazine in the world. Their magazine, called Word, would be aimed at their own Generation X. And of course, they claimed it would be something never before seen, something new and original. In fact, what they were doing was following in a tradition of publishing that's as old as Gutenberg. Young people with a voice looking for a place to be heard. The only difference was that their printing press had no ink, no paper, no delivery trucks. For they were going to produce their magazine exclusively on the World Wide Web. Dan Pelson is one of the founders.
The web is sort of at a point right now where printing was at maybe 100, 150 years ago, where suddenly the cost of printing and having your own press was very, very affordable, and anyone could have a newspaper cranked out of their apartment, basically. And if you go to the Smithsonian today, there's an exhibition there where you see hundreds and hundreds of newspapers that were done by Joe and Bob, and it's Bob's Daily and Joe's Gazette. And it's sort of at a point today where that was. Everybody's throwing something up on the net.
They kept going to see all the big publishing companies and found that while all the doors were opened, all the wallets stayed closed. For what the threesome actually asked for, to put their little e-zine venture on the right track, was about $1 million investment. And the publishing houses had a small problem with that, as the 3rd founder, Thomas Lavackery, discovered.
We said we wanted to start this online magazine. They wanted us to start the print magazine first and then eventually shoot off the online version. Well, we knew that would take a long time, and we weren't willing to go that route. We really believed in the web and the internet, and we wanted to go that route.
So the 3 kept knocking on doors and asking for $1 million, and true to the dream, they finally got it. Not from the established media giants, but from a New York-based technology company. Scott Baxter is the chief executive officer of Icon CMT Corporation, who had to convince his partners to go into the risky business of publishing.
I'd rather not call it publishing, because what you're talking about is taking all the mediums of the word, the telephone, the television, your computer, digital information, and what we're doing is we're actually creating a brand new medium Publishing is part of that, or print publishing, but you know, we're distributing video. Your television program, we would love to distribute that on the internet, and it can be done in a slowed down version perhaps today, but you know, we're working with technology to where we're going to be able to just ultimately distribute real-time video on demand over the internet. Icon is uniquely positioned to do that right now because we're one of the few companies who actually have the production capability as well as the distribution. We got the newspapers and we got the trucks, so we got the television station and we've got the radio waves, whichever you prefer, but we're bringing them all together.
And so word became a reality and arrived in cyberspace in the summer of 1995. Word is young, it is brassy, and it aims to be very New York hip. Its editor is Marissa Bowe.
First of all, you know, we would never, I don't think, run the kind of long analytical piece that some of the print magazines run because it's just not, you know, why read that on the web? You can read that in print. And I think the web stuff needs to be punchier. And if you're going to have something of a lot of, you know, with a lot of substance that goes in a lot of different directions, you can hyperlink those things. You can have one shorter body of an article and then you can have things branch off. Rather than in a print magazine, the writer does all the work for you, the thinking work. They give you the thesis, they go through all the examples, and then they conclude that stuff. And you know, we also have more interaction with the readers, that the readers can make the conclusions and they can discuss it on the, you know, on the bulletin board areas of the magazine. I look for stuff with a really strong voice. You know, I don't want to have a voice of Word that everyone has to write the same way, like some magazines have. And I look for people who are interesting people rather than people who are necessarily professional writers. You know, people who have an interesting story to tell. That's just far more interesting to me than someone who is sort of a hack writer that can be assigned to write about any topic but without any passion.
If you take a look at the content on the web today, sadly enough, it's largely not interesting to a lot of people. It's a lot of universities with a lot of research papers, and you know, you can get government Social Security laws, and you can do all kinds of crazy things, which is useful information to a very, very small segment of the population, individual segments. But clearly entertainment is the thing that's going to drive the, quite frankly, the financial backing, you know, behind the internet. That's what people, you know, corporate sponsors.
And as in traditional publishing, it is the corporate sponsors who will, in the long run, decide whether Word lives or dies. Claire Capici is an advertising executive on the Saab automobile account.
Everyone is trying to figure out what it is. You know, what is this and what can it do for me? A lot of it is about content and having something out there that, unlike traditional advertising, where we just have to kind of get it in places where people are, and hopefully they'll spend some time with it. This particular type of advertising is something people have to choose to go to. So that makes it a little bit difficult, but for lots of clients, they have information that consumers want, and this is a way for them to communicate with consumers and get that information across in a different way that hasn't been available to them before.
Like compared to TV in the 40s. I went out there and said, you know, we're going to create something for this new medium, and it's going to be good. And basically, we need your support. I was laid on the table and was really honest with people. And you know, some really big advertisers jumped up, and thank God they did, because I give them a lot of credit. They got in there before they knew what was going to happen. We had 5 sponsors before we even showed Word on the web.
And the sponsors that jumped in, these were major, you know, this is MasterCard, Zima, Saab. These are big players. This wasn't, you know, the local bar downstairs that helped do the launch party. These were, you know, major players.
The mortality rate among new and even established magazines is huge. This is not a business for the faint of heart. To start a mass market magazine that's not only competing with traditional markets, but trying to survive exclusively in cyberspace was a risky business. Yet even against all those odds, the word is out, and it's aimed at everybody.
We're going after men and women, and we actually, today we have over 25% of our audience are women, which we think is phenomenal for the net. And I think that shows that you can write or create content that appeals to both men and women. Typically, people on the net are a bit more affluent than the average average individual. So these people are college educated, and they obviously understand technology to some degree, although this is not a technology publication. This is a lifestyles publication. This is about life and coping with it in a fun way, hopefully, entertaining way.
Bit offbeat.
A little bit offbeat, we've been told. But that's our audience.
Right now you have, what, 3,000 magazines on the newsstand, and there's something for everyone out there. So, and there are a number of hit magazines that are very successful on the newsstand, so why couldn't there be a number of hit magazines that are successful on the web?
Yeah, and the bottom line is content, and our challenge is to make sure that our content meshes with who our audience is. Doesn't mean we're going to change the content if our audience suddenly decides that we're not hip anymore. Then we'll find something else that makes sense. But as Carrie was saying, the challenge is to basically stay in tune with who the audience is, and it's going to change quickly, and we're going to change with it, and we're going to have to be a leader in that area.
I think we almost have to be willing, kind of the Intel model, we have to be willing to cannibalize ourselves constantly. We have to be willing to say, this is what Word was, but what will Word have to be in 2010? What will we have to be? We have to really be able to reinvent ourselves constantly. And the internet, one of the things I love about the internet, it forces that. It forces reinvention. You cannot stay the same. And that is what's exciting about it as a medium. We'll wake people up out of their couches, and make them reinvent themselves.
For all their New York brass and attitude, there is still a sense here of an old-fashioned publishing setup with an office, staff, and a group of hired writers and editors, and what looks like a very traditional business approach. But don't despair, for there is another side to the internet publishing world, far from the money boys of Gotham and quite comfortable, thank you very much, in San Jose, California, where it seems every business on the internet starts in a coffee shop with iced lattes and a power book and a bit less than $1 million.
She's business, I'm entertainment.
Well, business and consumer divisions.
There you go.
Go to any place where they serve caffeine in Silicon Valley, and you'll find somebody with a new way of using the internet. Arthur Bebick and his colleague Sun Ming Liu, for example, have launched their publishing empire with an electronic magazine called NetSurfer Digest. They're convinced that because there is so much fluffy information on the web, we need someone who will tour it for us, find the interesting sites, highlight them, and publish them, giving us essentially a digital digest of the internet. Good idea, eh? They publish it twice a month. They're an unlikely pair. Arthur, like so many others in Silicon Valley, has been steeped in the computer business since he was a kid. Sun Ming has a PhD in biology from McGill University in Montreal. So when we joined them over traditional iced lattes, we were curious as to just how many hours of their day it took to open a new business on the internet.
It can certainly consume many, many hours.
More than full-time.
More than full-time. I think 8 would be an underestimate.
Yes. I think the answer is yes, it is definitely a full-time job. I mean, like any startup, we are basically a startup in Silicon Valley here, and it takes more hours than there are in a day. There's always more stuff to do than you need to. So yes, it is a full-time job. If you want to do it right, it's a full-time job.
Is he hard to work with?
I don't even see him most of the time. I mean, this is intergalactic headquarters at the cafe. See each
That's
other
true.
once in a while.
That's not a good aspect of it. We don't have to tolerate each other very much.
We don't have to see each other's face anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
That's how we stay in business and don't fly apart, I think.
In the true tradition of the internet, Arthur and Sun Ming have discovered it isn't necessary to have a big office when all you really need is a big idea. So the entertainment, consumer, and all other divisions of NetSurfer are actually run from this condo in Sunnyvale, California, where Arthur gave us a tour of the digest.
We publish online magazines, which we deliver through email, and once our readers get one of these email messages in their mailbox, basically all they need to do is to go into their browser and open the file. Here, for example, we're opening a file called NetSurfer Digest, which is our flagship publication, and once you're there, you can jump around to various digest articles which contain...
What are in these articles?
Basically, the articles are summaries of sites which we go out and NetSurf and find and which we think our readers would be interested in. The criteria is fairly subjective. We basically go out and find sites that we think are interesting, that we like. And it turns out that our readers happen to share our taste and, in fact, like what we give them. So it's whatever strikes us as interesting. There is no particular editorial criteria other than that. In a typical digest, we have about 30K worth of information, which translates to roughly 25 to 30 of these stories. So we have roughly 25 or 30 of these little digests, all of them with links to various interesting places. You know, they range from things like online travel, for example, here, to software, to just kind of general information of general interest, and a variety of surfing sites that we think our readers would be interested in.
And who are your readers?
Well, our readers are very much the cross-section of people on the internet. We have everybody from professionals who are very much aware of the internet, to students, to people who are just coming on. It's as wide as the internet. We have a very wide readership.
Along with their contributors from various parts of the world, Arthur and Sun Ming tour the web to find interesting sites which they can summarize and recommend. It's an eclectic mix. Sites might range from fantasy baseball to a paranoia page to Star Trek conventions to the latest serious issue on internet technology. But what they've discovered is there are internet users who come to rely on NetSurfer to cut through the vast amount of junk that's cluttering the web.
It really makes sense because, you know, as you point out, that there's just so much stuff out there, and most of us have less and less and less time. So there's a lot of value that we can bring to the table by filtering it down and bringing the most relevant stuff to the people who are interested in those particular areas.
A lot of people seem to agree with them, for at last count they had roughly 100,000 regular readers, split between those who get it on email and those who click on their website. If you were running a trendy metropolitan magazine in most cities in North America, 100,000 readers would be more than enough to pay the bills and fight off pretty serious competition.
Yes, we can compete with Time Warner, although we don't have their advertising budget, so, you know.
But we'll get there.
We'll get there, yeah. And that in fact, is the lesson of technology here. The economics of the internet have skewed things in such a way that very small outfits can very effectively compete with the traditional large media outlets. In many ways, they can provide better or more interesting content than kind of the formulaic content that all these other established media have been doing for many years.
NetSurfer has been successful in targeting a general readership, hitting a broad base. What other electronic publishers are trying to figure out is whether a magazine that's specialized in just one subject could also survive and prosper on the net. And for that answer, we have to go back to New York and magazine executive Peter Frischoff. Mr. Frischoff is convinced that the big money in internet publishing lies not in the huge general markets at all, but in the specialized trade press, where people like doctors, for instance, can gather from all over the world to share one major medical magazine.
The interesting things that we did an analysis of our registered users after the first 3 weeks, and we had about 350 who were physicians in Hong Kong. So what's very nice about the web is it doesn't matter if you're a publisher or a user, and you can be in Brooklyn, in Vancouver, or Tokyo, and you have access to the information. So it's a wonderful opportunity to expand people's understanding in healthcare, in wellness, in the care of the sick.
It's already a cliche in the internet community that the World Wide Web is as important to the publishing business as the Gutenberg Press. But think for a minute of what it really means to us as general readers. Access to thousands of magazines at a time from all over the world. We can choose where we want to go, what content we want to read, which ads we want to click on. And the magazines don't come to us, we go to them. So if we have a specific profession, or craft, or trade, we can get information from our own community of interest right into our own computers whenever we want it. And that's part of the reason Peter Frischoff has launched Medscape, an electronic magazine for healthcare workers, a magazine he thinks can bring a whole new level of information in the field of medicine.
What makes the web important is the information that you put on it. So it's really, I don't think we want to be in love with the technology for the sake of the technology. It's the information, it's the content, it's the quality of the information that are going to bring people to it. One of the wonderful things about the web is that there are no space restrictions. So unlike a traditional print medium where you may only have 4 or 5 pages to explain something, here you have an almost unlimited amount of space. Part of the problem of the web is that the temptation is to actually bury people in information and provide too much. So as publishers, our job is to filter the information so that it will be most effective for every audience. The number one rule of communication is communicate at the level of your audience. The web gives us unlimited potential to be able to do that for both consumers and healthcare providers.
Dr. Ken Sepkowitz of Cornell Medical School is Medscape's AIDS editor.
We've started to have submissions electronically for electronic use only, and that's actually what we had hoped would happen, and it's starting to happen now. And that's wild, and it's sort of the new frontier, I think. It's the big issue for us is how do we keep junk off of our space. And right now it seems easy because of the quantity of what's coming along we can still look at and review in the old-fashioned way. Medical journals historically always have what we call the peer review process, which is that an author sends in his article, it is sent out to two experts in the field, and they judge it. And it either is a thumbs up or thumbs down. Electronically, what is sort of nice about the great egalitarian internet is that junk is on there and everything is on there. The challenge then is to keep a little of that spirit of sort of anything goes over the net, but have reliable, credible, useful medical information there.
Another side effect of this Internet medical journal is that unlike the print versions, which most of us would never see, Medscape is now as easily available to a patient as it is to a doctor. And Peter Frischoff believes that can only be good.
About almost half of the registered users, and you have to register as a user in order to read the information on our website, about half of them are consumers. So the information that we provide is sophisticated and pretty tough, but it's there just like the information exists in medical libraries. It's just a lot more accessible. And that's all to the good because informed patients make much better patients. If people are capable of understanding their diseases, they will be much better patients for their physicians. You'll have much more of a partnership between patient and physician, and people will get better. They'll take their medications properly. They will ask good questions, and they will be a much more effective team.
These Internet magazines are poised to have a huge effect on the publishing business. Medscape is attracting readers and advertisers at an alarming rate, almost twice as fast as their projections. Word is reaching more people every week, some of whom probably aren't even hip. A net surfer's audience is booming. But don't be misled, for all this publishing success is not nearly as simple as it may look. If you're thinking of building your own Internet publishing empire, Arthur Bebick has some advice for you.
If you go back a year, you could still do a simple e-zine with a PC in a basement and come out with good content, and people would pay attention to you because there was not a lot of competition. The barrier to entry is definitely rising because you got the likes of Time Warner, the likes of various giant media conglomerates coming in and competing with you. And you have to produce material up to their standards. And clearly they can outspan small outfits as far as publicizing yourself. So there's a myth out there that the web makes it very easy to publish, but I think that's getting harder and harder.
Because of the growth?
Because of the growth and because of the competition. Yes, you can do it technologically, but in terms of the actual service delivered and the look and feel and all that, it's a lot harder. It's a full-time job, like I said.
So it's no longer a publishing panacea on the Internet, and it may well be that in an industry that didn't even exist a few years ago, we're already in serious danger of overcrowding. Where it seems every time you log onto the web, there are a dozen or so new electronic magazines vying for attention. Magazines that want to reach a mass market, fill a niche, or provide a service. What they're all going to find out, though, is that just like traditional publishing, it's going to be the quality of the product which will determine which of these publications fade away and which find a rich and fulfilled life on the Internet. A good place to start browsing the e-zine scene is here, John Leibovitz's e-zine list. You can search by title or even better by keyword. For example, if I select science fiction, I'll have a list of 19 science fiction zines. Keep in mind that the internet is not regulated, and people can publish anything they find interesting. So as you explore all the different zines on the web, browser discretion is advised. If you're thinking about starting up your own e-zine, Zines Everywhere has lots of resources to help you create your own publication. A good list of popular websites for newspapers, magazines, and computer publications is here at Acola's 24-hour newsstand. For magazines, just choose one of your favorite subjects. I'll choose music. And from here, I can link to Vintage Guitar Magazine and browse through their classifieds for that rare Fender Stratocaster that I simply can't afford. If you'd like more information about publishing on the net, we hope you'll drop by our site, because we have links to everything you've seen. You can find us at http://www.pbs.org. Until next time, I'm Scott Simon.
In a network of computers, it's not the MIPS and chips and whatnot that's most important. It's what goes on between the people using them that makes them really powerful. A reminder from Sun Microsystems, proud to support this PBS program.
This is PBS.